Hello, Tippendales. It's me, Ned Donovan, one of the two hosts of Daily Tips that may or may not help you. My co-host Ariel Nissenblatt cannot be here today, but I am here with our November guest tipper of the month, Dillin Apelyan. Dillin, hello! Welcome to the podcast. We are going to be hearing tips from you every Wednesday this month, and would you please tell the Tippendales, who you are, a little bit about yourself, maybe where they can find you while they're listening to this.
Absolutely. I'm Dillin Apelyan. My pronouns are your pronouns, so just mirror those back when you're talking about me after this. And I am a full-time patient advocate by day. I am also a game designer, podcaster, and actual play performer all other times. And you can find me on the internet as Super Dillin or Dillin Apelyan, anywhere that you're looking for games or game-related media.
I am often looking for games and game-related media, and I often text Dillin. So I highly recommend getting those recommendations. Before we kick off, I obviously you and I know each other through this actual play community you speak of, but
What?
I don't believe the Tippendales generally know what this is. Could you give a quick, brief rundown on what actual play is for the people who watch the pod?
Sure, absolutely. If you are looking at an actual play, what you're going to be seeing is a group of people who are playing a tabletop role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Starfinder, World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade, etc., up into the winding world of indie RPGs. And you are going to see them playing that game, usually with a bit of a performance aspect in mind, where they are trying to be mindful about the fact that they're playing this game and going to be perceived by an audience, but also oftentimes to showcase how the game is played so that audience members will get a feel for how that game is played and then hopefully go and play it themselves.
That's it. Everyone's heard me talk about Encounter Party on this show. It is an actual play television show, and Dillin is one of my favorite people in this actual play space, and I'm so excited to have him on the show with me. Dillin, the way that this interview tends to work is we want to look at your life in totality and the winding paths that got you to where you are today. So I'll kick this off sort of in the way that I often do, which is saying, for you, if you look at Dillin Apelyan today, where did it all start for you? What's the moment you're kablam, first path on the journey?
Oh my God. Disastrous. I feel like I wasn't even a person until I was 30 years old. I truly my life has been kind of winding. A lot of my 20s were a mess. I was a college dropout. I was chronically ill with very little support. I didn't really have a good full-time job with health insurance and things like that in most of my 20s. I was periodically either homeless or underhoused and couch surfing and living in my car and things like that. So my 20s were a bit of a blur. I worked, piecemeal jobs, multiple jobs a lot of the time. For a time, I was working as a nurse's aide in a hospital, a full-time stripper, and I was selling door-to-door sex toys via a multi-level marketing scheme that I hadn't really clocked onto. All of those things, to just barely make it, And so then I feel like there is a time in my life where during all of that struggle and all of that kind of just scrambling around, sometime around when I turned 30, I started working very, very part-time for a small convention that was community run, and I was running games for them. And that is when sort of I can kind of see clarity re-enter my life, where passion for a thing got let back in. And so sometimes when you're really struggling the way that I was struggling, when you're really super focused all the time on just making ends meet, you lose sight of what brings you joy in life, what you don't have the time to engage in, what brings you joy in life. And so once I rediscovered joy, passion, hobby, that's when I feel like my life became real and I became like a real person again. And so then the last 8 years have been in pursuit of aggressively reclaiming that and putting it back into my life as much as possible and making that fully into who I am.
Did you have a realization that you were missing this joy, hobby, passion, or did you fall in? Like, how did you end up at the convention? Was it an active choice to reclaim that passion, or was it something you fell into and it worked out?
It wasn't an active choice at first. I had no idea what I was doing. I went into the space as just a guest. And I guess sort of like was slowly realizing that like the people that made this such an enjoyable space, the people that made these spaces that you could go and engage with your hobbies were just people and like didn't have magic powers and like, like many of those things that you learn in adulthood that like the people who make all the things that you love and enjoy are just people is such a recurring light bulb moment that I keep having. And so I just had signed up to volunteer and run some things because I was just really curious about how it worked. And then I did that and was so head over heels in love and so in love with not just like the aspect of playing games with people and sharing games with people and showcasing games that I found interesting, but also like fell in love with talking about passions with people, performing for people, because when you're running a game for a group of strangers, you're doing a little bit of a performance as well, which is like rediscovering my love of performance that I had as a very young kid that I never got to do in my early adulthood, because again, that was just all a blur of struggle. So like rediscovering that and then discovering that I could combine those things. I could do that for people, give that kind of experience back to people and make it my own and make it something that is a part of my life, like came to me through the act of doing it. Nothing that I've ever done has been on purpose.
Ever.
I truly, like very rarely in my life has anything been on purpose. And I like it that way. I like the winding roads I've been on.
Well, and how long were you, like, had you been a person who gamed up to that point, or was that like the introduction of gaming into your life?
I had gamed a little bit. So like I was a nerdy little child. I grew up playing Pokemon cards
Hell
on
yeah.
Friday nights at the local library.
Yeah.
But then I have this like distinct memory of like when sexism became a thing in my life. Like it was like, you turned into a teenager and then all of a sudden everybody segregated themselves by gender in a really like strange way.
Yeah, sure.
And I felt kind of pushed out of those same hobby spaces when I was young. And then I did in my like 20s, I did occasionally game with people, but I had bad experiences where I was playing with people who, I kind of described my 20s. As you can probably imagine, I didn't spend a lot of time with a lot of great people in that era. And so I had messy experiences with people. Even though I was doing something I technically liked, it was also woven into bad, confusing, messy dynamics. Once I kind of realized there was a way for me to take ownership of it, there was a way for me to be in control of it, and also beyond that, to be an influence on the space and the industry itself, meant that I could change it in ways and I could connect with other people who were changing it already. And I could and have met those people and become friends with those people and have created community with those people. So like it has just gotten bigger and bigger, and it's sort of this like, hobby katamari that I've just sort of been gathering up all of these people and games and spaces that continuously make it better and make it into a thing that I actually can be proud to be a part of.
For people who play games at home, in community, wherever they are, I'm sure many of us, and if you're out there listening and you game, if this is you, cool. It's been for me in the past. Have experienced that sort of like I'm doing a thing I technically love, but I think it's interwoven with some pretty messy dynamics that make it not a thing I love, and yet here I am still doing it. Is that something that you actively realized in the moment, or it took stepping away from it? Like, how is it that you came to the space where you could put a break there and start to redefine it for yourself?
When I in sort of my late 20s, I left an abusive relationship that was one of those spaces where I did have access to games and I played games with this person and in groups with them. And when I got out of that, I realized that I didn't miss that environment at all, but I did miss the games themselves. And I like had this yearning for it. And I felt inspired to reach out to people and try to seek out spaces. I actually posted on my local Reddit being like, hey, I want to game with people. Like, please, where do I find you? And I realized that like if the games had been the problem, I wouldn't yearn for them, like it wasn't. It was like this distinct thing where like I could see the potential in it and I could imagine myself doing that with people who actually brought joy and like fulfillment to my life. I just hadn't had that experience yet. And so finding that was something, and that was more of an active choice that I had to just go out and make. And I got a message from someone who said, hey, I promised all my friends that that he knew at the gym um, that he would run D&D for them, but he was actually too scared, so he kept putting it off. So he told me in a DM that if I promised to run the game, he would make sure that everyone would be my friend. And he held up his end of the bargain. It was actually really delightful. We're still friends to this day. It's great.
That rocks. For people who are out there who might either be interested in getting into gaming, right? Like outside looking in, I feel like we know so many people who aren't in our space. We're like, it feels so daunting, right? Like to jump into this world where everyone's so rabid, which obviously I disagree on, but it can feel daunting. Do you have a
Sure.
recommendation on where people could look for tables or make that community if they wanted to come into the space? Like whether it's specific games to look for, or more specifically, like how to find local community who might be interested in gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so your local gaming store, depending on where you live, they are more than likely going to have tables that you can sign up to play with people, with strangers. And yeah, it is a little daunting. It is a little bit of a roll of the dice, so to speak, to like get a table that's going to be good. You might have some not so great experiences, but genuinely, I think that it is overall worth it. There are also online spaces like Start Playing where you can like seek out particular tables on there. That's like a paid service though, which for that you can definitely curate more. It's something that's going to cost you money, but you can like find a DM that has been reviewed to be someone that is not only a really engaging person to play with, but also a safe person to play with, et cetera, et cetera. And then you also have like the advantage of being able to have like someone you can report to if something bad does happen. Like those are kinds of ways that you can do that. But I definitely do recommend finding a convention space or a local gaming store as well, and just going there and talking to people and finding out what their thoughts are. And then if you're going to sign up for something, I think that if you look in the freakier places, like if you look for more indie games to try right off the bat, I feel like that's where you're going to find the people who really, really have a love for this and I really have a passion for it. And those are just going to be more fun, interesting people, I think.
I love that. I agree wholeheartedly. Local game shops make the world go round, and you should support them. Buy your games from local game shops. Try not to buy them from the Targets of the world if you can avoid it. Local game shops are great. And also, yes, Start Playing is another great, wonderful thing. That is a website to the Tippendales out there where you can join a table run by a DM, GM, as Dylan mentioned. It's really good. So then, Dylan, without diving too deeply into sort of like the gnarly 20s of it all, um, what for you was either a through line or like things you could hold on to that even when the world kind of sucked, you could power through to when you finally got to this moment, right? Like, what are we actually had a Tippendale reach out in my DMs not so long ago who was having a really tough time, and one of the tips we gave was like hard for them because of a specific life circumstance they were in, and they asked for like adjustments on it. But part of the question they had is like, how do I apply these tips when also just like getting out of bed sometimes sucks? Like, do you have a tip for like pushing through the shit of it all, for lack of a better term?
I do, and I don't know that my tip is going to work for everybody.
Sure.
This is really a me thing. I grew up reading David Sedaris
Love a David
books,
Sedaris.
who, if you don't know, is an author, a gay man who had a really rough life for a long time. He lived on the streets. He did a lot of bad drugs, and he did a lot of rough things to get those drugs. But he wrote the stories of his life, even the darkest ones, as comedy. And he found the comedy in all of them. And so I have always tried as soon as possible, even in the middle of the deepest of shit that I've been in, tried to spin it and find the humor in it and to make it funny, even if it's not. And I feel like I've genuinely been successful at that. I don't think it takes away. I'm never making it funny to take away from how hard it was. I am doing that because genuinely hard stuff is funny. It is and can be funny. And I ultimately wouldn't change it because my life is so full of story that if I hadn't gone through what I went through, I wouldn't have. And so maybe my life would be easier, but it would be less colorful and less funny. And I can't sacrifice that. So it really makes those things woven in a way that is positive.
I love that. I love the humor of it all. Gallows humor exists for a reason. And it's true. Dark stuff's funny. It can be. It's not always funny, but it can be. Looking then at kind of, we've talked a lot about the gaming side of you, but you also said you're a full-time patient advocate at a hospital, correct?
Correct.
And so where does that journey begin? How do you end up kind of in that path?
Oh my God. Also had no intention on doing that. I was a nurse's aide. I had wanted to become a nurse. I went to nursing school, but I was too broke to do clinicals, which is a thing that really people don't talk about a lot. But like your last journey to becoming a nurse, you have to pay a full-time tuition to work a full-time job at a hospital to do your clinicals and pass that final round. If you don't have someone in your life supporting you or a huge savings or something like that, it was impossible. It was not possible to do. So I couldn't do that. So I was stuck being a nurse's aide. I kept looking for things. I jumped from being a nurse's aide to a medical assistant. And then one day I found a job that was a patient advocate job at a hospital that when I got there and I got in, thankfully by having good recommendations, I really didn't meet the qualifications that they were looking for, but I had built up a good rapport with the doctors that I worked at, and they wrote me recommendations, and that was great. And I got into that and I saw the potential for it, but it was at a hospital that didn't really have the job description really figured out yet and was really not a great hospital. And I'll tell you this, building your resume, go work at a shitty place. That is you'll get promoted like crazy really fast. Put that stuff on your resume and then get out of there. A place that's falling apart, barely hanging on by the skin of its teeth. You can get yourself a really fancy looking title at a place like that really quick. And so that's kind of what happened there. And then I found a hospital that did have a reputable program with patient advocacy and did have a good structure for it. And I had been in this job long enough that I was able to transfer over. And now I get to advocate for people in a more meaningful way at a place that allows me the room to actually do that job.
That's excellent. So in the beginning of this, you named 4 jobs along the path here. Just like gaming as a concept, which we've dug into a little bit. Full-time patient advocate right now, kind of from the nurse's aid track. Full-time stripper and MLM sex toy door-to-door salesman.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a rapid fire here where your best tip either for that specific thing or applicable to life larger from each of those gigs.
Okay.
Like the life lesson you took from MLM sex toy sales or just how you got good at it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
We'll start at in the order you pitched them. I guess was full-time stripper was the first one in the list of 4 you said.
Great. That this is for stripping or any kind of sex work, truly. And this is something I learned from Cardi B back when
Shout
she
out
was
to
still
Cardi
doing it
B.
too. Shout out Cardi B. We loved your videos in the dressing room. But if you are doing any kind of sex work, or actually any kind of job where there is a high level of risk to you in any sort of like physical or social way, which would be like sex work or even healthcare or anything where like you're putting yourself in harm's way occasionally. If you are not making a significant amount of money that would help to change your life doing it, leave and do something else. But if you are able to make it work and make the money that's going to change your life, then it's worth it. And that is the over under. I see a lot of people stick it out hoping that one day it's going to change their life, but wind up sticking it out through way too much and putting themselves at risk way too much. So you gotta be weighing that balance.
Okay. Next one was MLM door-to-door sex toy salesman.
Yeah, men don't talk about sex in a meaningful way with each other, and they deeply need to. They deeply need to.
And how do you recommend they do so?
You know what? Start off with the humor. Let it segue you into a real conversation every once in a while. The jokes are a good starting point. Keep it going though.
See what else is going on under there.
See what else is going on under there.
Maybe just
pop open the hood.
Yeah.
Take a peek.
I love that. Are you an advocate for one-on-one, group talk, all of the above? Like how do you look at this?
All of the above.
Yeah.
It should be like any other conversation. Yeah.
Sick. Okay. Next up, we get to full-time patient advocate in that track. What is the life lesson, life hack that either has made you a very good patient advocate or that you have learned from that world and applied to your world at large?
Most of the time, if someone is yelling at you, it is because they are having the worst day of their life.
Oh, that's
sometimes
so
it's
good.
because they're an asshole, but most of the time, it's because they're having the worst day of their life, and you just gotta kind of breathe through it and accept that just happens to people sometimes.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Thank you. And then finally, we get to gaming at large, podcast or even. I might ask you for a bonus podcast tip, but we'll start at gaming. What is the tip you have either applied to gaming to make you better at gaming or learned from gaming to apply to life at large?
Play in everything. And this applies to your job, your friendships, your romantic relationships, sex, everything. You should be playing more, and imagining more, and doing more make-believe, and trying things and failing at them, and keep going. And that's it.
Love that. I have this belief that I think is purely mine, and I can't prove it because I don't have anywhere near the research capabilities to pull this off. It's just a feeling I have, and I work in the
Sure.
video spaces, but I have this feeling that video media consumption is such a new thing in the human life cycle, right? Like, we've told stories since there have ever been humans, but we haven't necessarily watched stories that were put onto film anything more than the last 100 years, right? Like, it's a very new experience. And I have
Yeah.
found that with human beings who are only consuming video media, they have like no capacity to imagine because the imagination is done for them by the video medium that they are consuming. And when you listen to a podcast, when you watch someone tell a story around a campfire, when you play a tabletop role-playing game, there's a lot of imagination baked into that experience that forces you to flex that muscle, and television and film is a very passive media viewing experience, which takes that away. And I have this theory that the rise in the lack of empathy societally is based around the lack of this muscle. Like, we've lost the ability to imagine easily at our fingertips, and therefore it's nearly impossible to instantly imagine ourselves in someone else's shoes, which means we can't empathize with their life experience. And I really feel like it often comes back to this. And again, I love TV and film. I'm part of this industry, but I feel like if that's the only thing you're doing to consume your stories, then you're losing a like fundamental piece of your brain. And I feel like play is the solution to that. Like, play at large, so that you have to be imagining grand, beautiful universes because you might just imagine a person you didn't think of yesterday.
If you are a big fan of visual media, I think then the answer, I can't speak to whether or not you're correct on this, Ned, but if that is the case, I think then the answer is people should be doing fandom more.
Yeah!
Watch the movie and then get weird about it.
Get
with
in
some
there!
strangers on the internet and imagine alternate universes of it. And connect with those people who are also doing that.
Yeah, I love that. Dillin Apelyan, you have been our November guest tipper here on Daily Tips that may or may not help you. Thank you for diving into this weird little podcast that Ariel and I make. Would you please remind the Tippendales kind of quickly who you are and where people can find you and learn more about you and consume your work?
Absolutely. I'm Dillin Apelyan, or Super Dillin everywhere on the internet. You can find me as the host of the One Shot podcast, where we play a new indie RPG every single month with a new cast of characters. You can also find me on Dorkspawn, which is a video game book club podcast, where we play choice-heavy video games and discuss them chapter by chapter like a book club. You can find my games at superdillin.itch.io or various retailers online. And that's it.
Everyone, those links will be in our show notes. They won't necessarily be on the social media posts because sometimes there's character limits, but Super Dillin, SUPERDILLIN, for those of you who aren't looking in the show notes. Dillin, thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to leave the Tippendales with before we go? In fact, I said I was going to do it earlier and then I didn't. Do you have a bonus tip about podcasting?
Bonus tip about podcasting is it's still an art form, so get good at it.
It is an art form. It's an art form. Get good. I love that. Anything you'd like to leave with the folks?
Be a good friend to people and be a good community member in any hobby that you're in, and people will be willing to help you more than you think.
I love that. I love that. Dillin, I love you. Thank you for being here on Daily Tips that may or may not help you. And Tippendales, you can catch Dillin every Wednesday this month here on Daily Tips that may or may not help you. And you will see Ariel and I on Monday for yet another tip that may or may not help you. And then we play music here.
Love that. Music's great.
It is great. Shout out to Marcus Pagala, the guy who does all our music.
Shout out, Marcus.